On today's show, I have Ronnie Ferguson, who is one half of the father-son duo Streaking in Tongues, and they are from Otisville, Michigan. We're going to talk about their new album, Oh My Darlin', and some of the other music videos they've been making, some of the buzz they've been creating online. So let's dive in. Welcome to the show, Ronnie.
Oh, thanks, Kelly. Nice to be here. Appreciate it.
Hey, when I say, buzz, you've got a lot of cool stuff going on, I think at first you kind of seem like a novelty act, but people are definitely taking you seriously. What's been some of the best...
Oh, we're definitely a novelty act. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, you've had some really good comparisons. I think a couple of reviewers said your album was in the same neighborhood as Bob Dylan's Blood on the Tracks and Wilco's Summer Teeth. Those are pretty nice comparisons.
Yeah, that's a really nice thing to say. Yeah, I think maybe with this new album, they're kind of similar to those two, maybe because they're both kind of like deal with a lot with broken relationships, and I think that's what our album's about too. It's kind of inspired by that song, Oh My Darlin', Clementine, too. I don't know if you're familiar with that old Western folk ballad, but that kind of inspired our title a little bit as well.
Well, I'm sure the question everyone always has is, what motivated you to start this with your son? It's very charming, just to see fathers and sons do anything together nowadays is pretty nice to see.
Yeah.
But what made you dive in, and actually start a band with your son?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, he hasn't. So he was just a baby when I started playing music, and so when the first Streaking in Tongues album came out, that album was dedicated to Elliot, and he was just a little guy at the time. And by the time we recorded the second album, that was kind of, we were kind of a bigger band for the first album. There was maybe 6-7 different musicians that were kind of circling in our group, and we were kind of sort of like an experimental rock orchestra. It was kind of a wild sort of thing. I really liked it. But for the second album, we ended up, I moved away, and I kind of, Life Support, our second album, I kind of made mostly by myself. And I remember Elliot, he ran in during the recording of the last song on Life Support and interrupted it. And it's like this really beautiful moment that we left on the album. And it was an album I had written kind of about losing my father. And it was just like this, like, make your hair stand up kind of moment. He runs into the room as my child, and I'm his father, and he has the last line on the album, and he's trying to interrupt me. He wants my attention. And so the tape cuts off at the end of our second album, and that was it. So, the first album was dedicated to him. The second one, he runs in and he announces himself. And so by the time we get to the third album, Kindergarten Prayers, which we released last year, I was kind of playing with some other players again, some adults, but then, we kind of all went our separate ways through different kind of work situations. We were kind of all in different areas at the time. So the album was finished, and I was thinking about playing it out, and I had recorded with Elliot on it some, and I just asked him, I said, hey, would you you want to try to do these shows with me? You want to kind of be the band with me? And he just without hesitating, he's like, yeah, sure, let's do it. So we had 2 weeks to prepare for our first show, and he learned the whole set, and he'd never played an instrument before. And so he learned the whole set and just did a great job. And ever since then, it's just been the two of us. And so it's been a couple of years now, and yeah, we've just been, I just really enjoy it. It kind of makes music different for me. It's kind of more of a lifestyle thing now and a family thing. It's like something we do at home as opposed to this sort of connected project where we're trying to, I guess, attain something. It's just more like this is kind of what we do, and if people are interested in it, that's great. But I don't know. To me, it's a little more personal now, and also a little bit less distracting or trivial, which can happen when you're playing shows and bars and things like that. It can take on different elements, which are not always good for the art. And so, so that's kind of where we're at with that. And so this new album he worked on with me, recorded, but even more than, he did help me quite a bit with the recording of Oh My Darling, but even more than that, we've been working on some short films, and we released 3 of them we're about to release 3 of them that we made over the summer that were inspired by Kindergarten Prayers, our last album, and he was a star in each one of them, so he's quite a little actor. And so it was, we kind of think of it more than just a band. It's kind of like our art project, ongoing art project,
Oh, very, very much. Well, your music videos on your website, you have an interesting way you describe them as mini movies, and they really do seem like more than just the usual music video. They are very sometimes experimental, sometimes just almost like a home movie. What's your approach when you make these music videos?
Yeah, well, we didn't start calling the mini movies till these last 3 that we just made this summer. Before that, they were just music videos, and we probably have close to 40 of them now, and we didn't make them all. Some of them were completely made by like friends of ours that are really gifted filmmakers, and we just collaborated with them. Like they took our song and interpreted it. So guys like Sean Warnett is a great filmmaker, and a guy named Abbott Daimler is another great filmmaker. There's probably 6 or 7 different filmmakers who have made videos for us over the years. Wes Swartz is another one. But we've also made a lot of them ourselves. And I guess the idea of why they become mini movies, these last 3, is really just we set out, we were kind of trying to make a music video, and we realized that the story just called for more than that. So we filmed these larger stories. We realized like this is too much material for one song, so we kind of were like, how do we want to do this? Do we want to like have them be scripted and add dialogue, or do we want to try something maybe that we've never done before? So we went that way. We tried to do something we've never done before, and so we kind of made them almost like, I guess, music video suites. There's like 3 or 4 songs that are the backdrop to these stories, and most of the stories have very little dialogue that we hear. It's mostly just, it's almost like watching, I don't know, I guess you'd say like a silent film, but there's music, you know what I mean? It's like there's
no,
the
that's a good
characters
comparison.
Speaking. Yeah.
Yeah, the silent film comparison is good, and they're really good at an introduction to your music, like say no one's heard you before. I think the videos make it very accessible because it really captures the tone of the music. But another question is just your genre. You're a little hard to peg, which is okay because, you're very versatile album to album, track to track. But some, call you like folk, experimental, indie rock, art rock. What do you think you're developing? Are you kind of going towards a certain
I like all
subgenre?
Those sound great. I like all those. I usually say if somebody asks me, it's kind of hard to say. I usually ask somebody else that's heard our music and say, what do you think? But, I say experimental just because experimental, some people said avant-garde, just like we don't feel like we are trying to write to a specific genre. Our music is meant to sort of dance in and out and combine and mesh different things. And so, I don't know, I think when people hear it, though, people have said, like, anti-folk or freak folk or art rock, and I think we kind of have elements of all that in our music. And also, I would say we don't get mentioned a lot of score music, and I think a lot of our music is inspired by score music because that's actually the first music I started recording was making scores for films and plays as I worked at a theater, and I'd write original music for shows I had written or I was directing. And so I really like when it's not just all piles and piles of words on albums. I like when artists like have music too, and it's just what the music just speaks without the words. And so I think that that's a big part of our stuff too. And so yeah, I would say we're eclectic, but I think I don't know, people seem to find somebody hears our music, they'll say, well, I hear this in it, we get the Flaming Lips a lot, or some people say like the Beatles, and I don't think we sound like the Beatles, but we're definitely like disciples of the Beatles. Like we love the Beatles, we love the Rolling Stones and, a lot of classic artists, but I don't think that we've ever tried to sound like any artist or genre. I just think we're using the tools we have, and, I'm not a classically trained musician, nor is my son, so, we just we make the noise that we can make, and we kind of trust that our best will be enough for us, and it is enough for us, but for others, they take it or leave it.
Sure. Well, have you been exactly? Yeah. Well, have you been embraced by college radio?
Yeah. It depends on what you mean by embraced. I mean, we're no household name, I don't think. I mean, at least that I'm not aware of. We've been played on a few college radio stations around Michigan. Like, I think we appeared on the Impact 89 FM, Lansing's Michigan State College Radio. We were on there and on Western, but we're not like, we have our own record label. Like we don't have like a manager. We don't have somebody like trying to pitch our music places. And without that, you kind of gotta be word of mouth. And I think we're more of a word of mouth group because we don't have those like things in place right now. Like we don't have somebody that books for us or anything. We kind of do things completely at our own pace, and I would love to find people to work with that care about that and are knowledgeable about that, but we're not. I mean, we do care about it, but we're not knowledgeable, and we're not obsessed with like being big or anything. So like being on radio is like, that just sounds almost like it's like being in Hollywood. It's like. Right. We'd rather just make our own films at home and share them, and if people like them, they'll share them, and they'll find an audience. But as far as like the bigger time, I don't know. That would be something that would have to find us more than us find it.
Well, I think you've put out almost one album every year since 2015. So it sounds like you are building up a body of work, and that people are taking notice of that. Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and thanks for saying that. That's good to know. I think, I think each of our albums is different, and I think this new one, I think it's our best. I think each one has been our best yet, but, that's debatable. Some people may like our first one best of all, but, we're just enjoying the journey, I was talking with a buddy last night who, a good friend of mine, and he had come to the first plays I'd ever written, and this would have been back maybe 15 years ago. And we were just talking about that show he was at. It was a bunch of my short plays, and we were just kind of laughing about it now, thinking like, oh, some of that's embarrassing, but some of it's still kind of cool. And I was just talking to him, and I said, one thing I'm learning, I think, is as a writer and as an artist is over time you can like really critique yourself hard and judge your former work, or you can just accept where you were at the time and just kind of continue on without judgment. And I'm trying to learn how to do that, like to look critically at my own stuff and move forward, but not to look back, and or if I do look back, to just be happy for that I did something then, and so that's kind of how I look at it. Is we're really, we are not worried about if we put out something and it doesn't connect or whatever. I mean, to us it's like that's all bonus, when people really connect and like our stuff. But we liked it enough, and we had enough of a joyful time making it that was worth it. Well, that comes through. Yeah. I think that really comes through that you and your son enjoy making this. So much of the music climate I hate to throw around terms, but there's
Yeah.
always like a hipster element out there in indie rock and underground. And I think with you guys, you have something authentic that I think a hipster, would try to duplicate but can't, because you're just, naturally what you are. There's nothing contrived. And I wonder how much of that is because you're from a small town. I mean, how big is Otisville?
Well, Otisville, which is where we started playing it. We don't live in Otisville now. Now we live in Marquette, Michigan, which is in the UP. But when we lived in Otisville, it's I don't know. I think Wikipedia says we have about 900 people, but I've probably only seen a third of them. So not many people. 0 places to play music. When we were filming some of our mini movies this past summer, I mean, for example, one lady called the cops on us because she saw us on the street with a video camera. So, it's kind of a town where, you do this stuff and you're sort of like an alien, And so that's one of the reasons we moved, is we just wanted to be in a better artistic climate, just a place where we had more kindred spirits, And so there we didn't have any. We were each other's kindred spirits. That's it. Like there was literally no one else. There's no place to play a show.
Do you think it was that isolation that caused you to want to make some music?
I think that isolation is what causes a lot of people to make music. And sometimes that's you hear a lot of stories of the old blues singers singing their blues, so that they could stand outside their blues and they didn't have to live them anymore, And it's kind of like, I think that's true with people. Sometimes you write from a place of, it's just you got to find language for your experience, maybe for your pain, for your confusion, for your ecstasy, your poetry too. You got to find a language for it, and I think that that's what music is for a lot of people. And I think there's some truth to that for us. But I think that's kind of how I started. I think I started writing and doing music and writing stuff, out of a place of depression. I remember I started writing as a teenager when my father was sick, and I think it was like the only way I could. It was like therapeutic for me, and then it sort of, as I got older, it took on a deeper meaning. It became more than therapeutic. It became something that was empowering, and then as it's continued on, and now like when I work on music and film stuff with my son, it's like it's therapeutic, it's empowering, but it's also like it's like our hobby, it's like our joy, it's like what we do rather than binge watch television all day. Like we like binge work on cool projects. That's like our life, I mean, it's a part of our life. It's not all our life, but you know what I mean? It's like it's taken on a different meaning. And I really like the new meaning. I think it's better than the meaning I had found before. So I'm all for it.
Well, it comes through in the videos and the music that you enjoy working together. Our time's flying by. We're going to have to wrap up, but I just have one quick question along those lines for you.
Sure.
What have you learned from working with your son, and how has that enhanced your relationship with him?
Yeah,
it's a big question to end.
What have I learned? Yeah, what have I learned? I've learned a lot of things. Not just from working with him, just from being around him. The child is the father of the man, as Brian Wilson sang. And Wordsworth wrote in the early 1800s, right? So yeah, I mean, I learn a lot from my son all the time. Like he's not only is he just like a brilliant, lovely person. He's like he took the best of me and the best of his mom and got rid of all the rest. That's how I describe my son. He's amazing. I love him. He's my hero. So I get working with him. I learn a lot. For one, with music, I learned that ability, being able to read music, being able to play all kinds of music is not always what music's about. For example, like some of the coolest music I've made in my life has been with him, and he has no training. He could not play another song outside of our music. But he's also come up with music, parts of our songs, because he comes from a different place. He comes from a place that's almost like he comes from a place as a painter. He's more of a visual artist, at least that's where he started. And so he comes to music from a whole different mindset. It's kind of like he thinks about it in a different way, different textures. And so I've learned that, like, music, the arts in general, are not something that you always have to have this long history of training with. You can just kind of dive in where you're at and find your way. And I kind of did that with filmmaking, and he's doing it with music. And so that's one of the big things I've learned. And one of the other things I've learned is you can be ambitious without stressing yourself out. I used to stress myself out a lot trying to do like big projects, and I would just sort of like carry the weight of like some crazy ambition. I want to write this epic thing or whatever. And what I found is like working with my son is just like, that's not an option. Like, I don't want to put that crap on him. So I like learned those lessons for myself by working with him, and it's just made things so much more enjoyable. And it hasn't.
Well, that comes through in the music. I think that really comes through with the music. Well, we just have a few seconds left here. Where can people find you and your music online?
You can find us pretty much anywhere. If you got Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, Bandcamp. If you want to buy our album and support us, go to Bandcamp. That's where you can get the cheapest. But if you don't care about any of that, then you can get it pretty much anywhere online. And our website, streakingintongues.com, you can go to, and you can check out videos, read about us, check out all of our albums, see what people wrote about us, that kind of stuff. But yeah, pretty much anywhere.
Well, they're writing
online,
good things.
Yeah.
Well, they're writing good things when you mention that. So you've got great comparisons. I think a lot of people, your fan base is growing. But if they're going to buy your albums, not only the new one, Oh My Darling, but you have your first, Knocky Boo, The Eternal Playground, Life Support, Kindergarten Prayers, and then the current Oh My Darling.
Yeah,
well, I wish I wish the best for Streaking in Tongues, which is Ronnie Ferguson and his son Elliot. You guys are amazing, and hopefully next time can get you on the phone with your son and hear things from Elliot's point of view. Yeah,
that sounds good, and he would like that. I appreciate that, Kelly. Thanks. That's really encouraging, all the nice things you said, and I hope you enjoy the album, and I appreciate you taking time out to shine a light on the little guys. We love that, so thanks a lot.